Hey everybody, welcome to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thank you for joining us on this Monday, April 18th, the year 2022. We are just over a month away from Star Wars Celebration. James and Lacey with me here, as always. We're going to give our takes on the latest Star Wars news. A lot of it is pretty, no duh, but we have a good show for you. And speaking of shows, before we get into everything, we had talked about it last week that we were working on finalizing some plans for us for Star Wars Celebration. And now, if you're not on social media, we can reveal to you that we are holding our own event on Saturday, May 28th at 6:30 with a 5:30 happy hour at the Radiant Beer Company, about just 3 miles away from the Anaheim Convention Center. So we are very excited that we're going to be doing our own podcast event. All ages are welcome. We have links to RSVP and plenty of details available to you. You can find via our Twitter account, or just give us a shout out on email or wherever, and we'll get you the details. But we also have an article up on Star Wars Newsnet, so a lot of places where you can find the info. But if you need it, you know how to reach us. But very excited to do this, and we're behind the scenes now with the actual planning of the show itself and the logistics of everything. But we just wanted to announce to all of you out there who might be attending Star Wars Celebration that we will be doing a live podcast on our own event. So very proud of that. And we are looking into the potential of streaming this. So if you can't go to Celebration, there may be a chance that we can stream it. We are working on that. We can't definitively say we're doing that, but James, we're doing it, man. We're doing it.
Yeah, this is gonna be nuts. I'm really excited about the stuff we're working on. Kind of goodie bag stuff, little surprise things, it's
little in-show stuff.
We're working it all together. Yeah.
Lacey, are you more excited about this than when we were doing our first one ever in 2019? Is it the same? How you feeling about this year's our own event?
I think I'm more excited for this one just because we have there's a lot of bonuses with this one. Not only are we kind of controlling it as a control freak myself, this is the event for me where I kind of am able to control kind of how we present ourselves and what people are going to experience at the event. It allows us to do a meet and greet / happy hour type thing, which is really great. That's my favorite part of Celebration, is meeting people. So I'm really, really pumped that we have that time, both before and probably after the podcast as well. I really love giving out free swag, and we've made so much it's ridiculous. So there's that. We can run over our time a little bit. We have a good chunk of time that we can use. We don't have to be nervous of whose panels before us or whose panels after us, which is cool as well. And just, I don't know, I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be really, really great. And as a side note, I know the first initial response is oh, it's not at the event. That's even better because we get to kind of make it our own little base, which is cool. And then the Radiant Beer Co. told us that if you go there via Lyft or Uber, which you probably will, you get 5% off, which I thought was really cool because literally everyone's going to be doing that. Yeah. So automatically off the bat, you get a cheaper beer than what you would have thought.
Yeah. And, just in communicating with them and, having calls with them and working with them, Radiant Beer Co. Have been a delight to work with. We're very excited to partner with them in this event. So as excited as we are, we know that you're going to be just as excited if you have the opportunity to join us. So again, that's going to be Saturday, the week of Celebration in Anaheim, May 28th. Our podcast will start around 6:30, but as we said, at 5:30 or so, we're going to be showing up for a bit of a happy hour, a little pre-show hangouts.
Come for the happy hour and to grab your seat early. You're going to want, a good seat.
So if you're not a Spice Runner, you're going to want to, those people, our Spice Runners can roll in oh, what time is it? Front row? What?
It's my time.
What's up? Yeah. But all jokes aside, we've had quite the response to the RSVP list already. And we just can't thank everybody enough who is deciding to make our event, which is a little bit off-site from the convention, a part of their celebration week. It means a great deal to us. We're very humbled by that. And we are going to deliver a great show. It's not just, plop a mic in front of us and let's just talk for an hour. We always try to do our best to put on a great show here when we do our normal show, but live, even though we haven't done a bunch of them, I think we like to kick it up a notch. So very excited to get into all that. We'll be releasing more details as we go. Obviously, there's some things we're just not going to tell you because they're going to be a part of the show. So we're going to be like, oh God, I can't wait because all this stuff that we got going on. There's already stuff we have going on in the show that I'm excited about. So again, if you need more info from us, hit us up. We'll get it to you. But it's on the site on Star Wars Newsnet. It's on our Twitter account, Instagram, so you can find it if you need it. But
definitely giveaways too. We forgot to mention that. Outside of the swag, we will have giveaways. So
yeah, giveaways as well. Yeah. So anything else? I don't think we need to give out too much else about this.
Come hang out with us. That's all you need to know.
It's gonna be a good time. All right. So we are gonna get into giving our takes on some of the latest Star Wars news popping around. So James, what is going on this week, man?
It's the Resistance.
First thing this week is an interview. That's kind of interesting interview because it was done by the site Romper, and they started off by being like, if you're looking for the hard-hitting interview with this actor, you're not going to get it here. If you're here for like chocolate bunnies and Star Wars, yeah, that's what you're in for. But the interview was with Bryce Dallas Howard, and it had a lot to do with The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. But the more interesting thing coming out of this that she said as she was asked specifically about the show Ahsoka, and in going to it, she talked a lot about Dave Filoni and the Clone Wars and how everything has grown from that. And we know a lot of that stuff, but the interesting thing is that she said that if you're a fan of the Clone Wars, like keep your eye on Ahsoka. It's going to be great. You're going to a lot of appreciation from Clone Wars fandom going into that one. So that just led everybody to start speculating what could that mean. It could mean various things. Off the top of my head, I was like, well, that confirms to me that the Tamara Morrison Rex character and whatnot, just because we have that actor. Maybe he's not doing Book of Boba Fett. Maybe it's been in the, maybe that's how she's in the ties and all this other stuff. So that was my thought right off. But I'm going to start with you, John, on this one. What were your thoughts on Bryce Dallas Howard and mentioning the Clone Wars in association with Ahsoka?
People take issue with nepotism and that sort of thing in Hollywood, and I definitely do too. Especially, that whole thing. Like, you'd be surprised how many actors have, their dad is a movie producer or something like that. You're like, oh my God, seriously? That's why like Jake Gyllenhaal and Maggie Gyllenhaal got famous? Stuff like that. But not to say they're not talented, but it's definitely an easier way in. And that obviously exists with Bryce Dallas Howard. Ron Howard's her father, and that's fine. But she has proven her mettle here, and now she's like got the confidence because she knocked it out of the park with The Mandalorian. She comes into Book of Boba Fett and gives people arguably the best episode of the entire run. So now you sense this tone with her, like, I earned my place here. I'm not just Ron Howard's kid directing Star Wars. I'm Bryce Dallas Howard, director who directs Star Wars. And I think that's awesome. And you can kind of tell how she's just part of the mix now with Favreau and Filoni. So my question is, I know this is all really closely tied together. She obviously was, directing another episode of The Mandalorian. So she's been talking to them, we're, finishing up filming for, Mandalorian season 3. We're starting Ahsoka in the same location next month. It's possible she just heard and was talking to them and said, man, you guys are really going to be in for something great. But I'm thinking she may be in line to direct another one of these because she did Mandalorian every season so far. Also Book of Boba Fett. It stands to reason to think that, especially based on the responses that she's getting from her work in Star Wars, they got her slotted in for a very important episode for the Ahsoka series too. So while that's not confirmed, as far as I recall, I think the only director that's been picked so far is the guy from Into the Spider-Verse, right?
Has there been any real official announcement? Because I feel like the last time we talked about it was will Dave Filoni direct every episode?
So Peter Ramsey, yeah, Lacey, you got it. He was, I believe a trade may have reported this though, which, probably true.
Yeah.
He was reported to be directing at least one episode of the Ahsoka series, which is a limited series as I understand it. So, whether it's like Kenobi where it's 6 episodes or they do 8, 10, who knows? But I believe it's just one block of shows. For those, I was leaning more towards get us one director, but if they are going to be bopping it around, give me a Bryce Dallas Howard episode. So if she is directing it and she's telling you right now that Clone Wars fans are going to be, well gifted by what's going to happen here and treated to greatly rewarded was her exact phrase by the Ahsoka series, then bells start going off. Is it Rex? What clones are going to be in live action finally? That means more Tamara Morrison, which people are over the moon about, and she's clearly worked closely with him now by directing him. So we kept thinking with Ahsoka, rebels, but you got Ahsoka in the mix. She worked closely obviously with the clone commanders. We're going to get maybe all of that recent animation from Star Wars, treating the fans with some well-placed, well-done, sensical fan service in live action form. So it's just another reason for fans to be excited about this show. Rebels fans are obviously already very excited. James, I know you are pumped to see what's going to happen with this Ezra search, but now you look the other side of it, and maybe we're going to get some, Captain Rex and those guys in the mix. So, there's not a ton here. Like you said, it was a fluffy interview, but the fact that she just came out and said that's that whole like show of confidence thing. Now, the only thing that makes me a little concerned is how Robert Rodriguez saying how great, Book of Boba Fett was going to be, and a lot of people didn't like his episodes. So, but for some reason with Bryce Dallas Howard, I think she's earned the capital to say these sorts of things and me to believe it. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, it brings up a good point too, because we're going right to Rex, but Rex was part of Rebels as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like she didn't say like animation fans will be happy or something like that,
Good
so
point.
I don't know. Yeah, it's very specific to the Clone Wars in this case. But Lacey, what are your thoughts on Bryce Dallas Howard and her association with Ahsoka seemingly? And then obviously this phrase about the Clone Wars and stuff.
So I'm going to be honest, the more things I took away from the interview were not that statement. Only because I felt that statement, the one that everybody's freaking out about how you'll be greatly rewarded, I feel like, first of all, it was kind of a given that we'd see Clone Wars ties there because it's Ahsoka. Second of all, I feel like we've gotten a lot of Clone Wars content, so I'm not surprised that this show is also tied to the Clone Wars. It's not a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, it just didn't catch me as like, oh, this is interesting, because it just seemed like an obvious thing. Like, we've talked about a couple different aspects of, like, Cad Bane showing up in the Book of Boba Fett. Like, that's kind of an awesome thing, but it's a given. Like, this is what I feel about Ahsoka as well. I think that there's definitely going to be ties between the Clone Wars and Rebels. There has to be. So when she said this, I was like, yes, that makes sense. You're not really giving anything away. But I understand why Clone Wars fans and animation fans are really pumped. Some of the stuff that stood out to me was, first of all, I loved how the interviewer's son, Henry, who's 12 years old, was pumped about Dave Filoni and knew who Dave Filoni was and was like, yes, I know Dave Filoni. And I was like, imagine that impact that you've had as these new fans that are much younger. They're pumped to hear about Dave Filoni, probably more than George Lucas at this point. Like, they hear that name and they're just like, yes, I love Dave Filoni. And I've known a lot of different people that aren't into Star Wars, but maybe their kids are, and their kids always are into Rebels, the Clone Wars. Like, that's their Star Wars. So it's always interesting to hear that kids are just, like, in love with Dave Filoni. I mean, all Star Wars fans are, but it's just exciting to hear kids talk like that. But the thing that stood out to me was her talking about how close her family is with George Lucas, which we all know, but just like hearing the little details, like every Christmas she got figures and she didn't really think of it. And I was like sitting there as I'm reading this interview going, I hope she didn't open them. Like, I hope she kept them in the box, but like, obviously she probably didn't. She probably played with them, but imagine getting Christmas gifts from George Lucas. And then the thing that actually made me laugh out loud is when Bryce was talking about how the last time she saw George, he was like, I have a picture of you naked in the bathtub with my kids. And she's like, great, George. I'm what is she, like 30 something, 40 something? Like, great, George. And like, I love her thing. She just wrote, awesome, George. Like, it's such like a family friend thing. Like everybody has those friends of your parents that say these things that you're like, it's a little embarrassing. Why are you bringing this up? But like, it's coming from a place of like love and care. But it's just really funny that George Lucas would just like say that at like a premiere or a party or some type of event that's like, I've seen you naked when you were little. And you're like, all right, George Lucas, like this is very awkward. But I loved that. I loved the humor throughout this whole interview. And I think she's just got a really great attitude. And we've seen that through her interviews and also gallery behind the scenes stuff with Star Wars. We know she's talented. Like John was saying, we know she can handle directing Star Wars. So everyone says it. I'm going to repeat it. Give her a Star Wars. Like, give her something that can be her own. She's proven herself time and time again. And maybe she just wants to do episodes, and that might be totally true. But I feel like she's a little hungrier than that. I think they should give her her own series, her own movie, and I think she'd kill it.
This was when when we had that conversation about will Dave Filoni direct all of it. Part of the conversation was, will Bryce Dallas Howard direct all of it?
I don't remember what I said for that. I'm blanking right now. I think I said he wouldn't.
Yeah,
I said
know.
he wouldn't. I think John said he would.
I don't remember what I said 3 minutes ago, let alone.
Yeah. What story are we talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No. But yeah, it was, we were discussing the possibility of Dave Filoni directing all of it. And then we also brought up, like, is Bryce Dallas Howard kind of...
Dice.
Yeah, Dice. Is she being kind of set up also as well as, like, you know, she seems to be probably the director that is standing out other than maybe Deborah Chow, you know? I think I think it was even like kind of debatable. And then they gave Deborah Chow the whole show, but they didn't give it to Bryce, and Bryce is still continuing to stand out even in the Book of Boba Fett as well. So it's like, okay, so something's going on here. So when are they going to give her that standalone series? And it almost kind of makes sense here too, not to go against what we were saying earlier about the other director also, being involved, but it feels weird for her to say something without her involvement. So we know she's involved to some degree, whether it's like being involved in, I don't know, maybe she's being brought in as producer, or something, like, who knows? Like there could be literally anything, but it's interesting. I think the comment on the Clone Wars thing, I think you're right, Lacey, that all of this stuff has ties to the Clone Wars, but it is weird when you like wink at something very specifically, Oh,
like, sure. Of course. I'm just saying it seemed like a statement that I was like, oh, that's cool. But the more exciting things to me was the weird stuff about George.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, when she says that, I immediately was like, okay, so then that's confirmation of Rex in my head. And then the longer I thought about it, I was like, really, it's not. So it literally could be anything.
This is an example, again, that when I read it, I went, James is probably pumped reading this.
But what is weird, though, is I wish she would have said Rebels, because then that makes me feel more confirmed that, that still says the Rex thing could be the connection here. But she said fans of the Clone Wars are going to be excited about Ahsoka. And I'm like, okay, so I don't know. Is that a comment on the trade story we got where Hayden Christensen is going to be returning to Ahsoka?
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, good point.
Maybe that thing there is clearly not connected to any other stories other than Clone Wars. So if you watch Clone Wars,
say Sky Guy, right? Didn't she?
Seeing, Sky Guy and Snips and all that stuff, like that connection there could be maybe that's the episode she's directing. She's already been handed a little bit of it. She's going like, oh, I need to do a little bit of research on this if she doesn't already know what's the relationship here and stuff.
Absolutely.
So maybe that's the connection. And it's not so much like just random character from Clone Wars or prominent character who haven't really seen in live action yet. It could just really be like, what was Ahsoka's story in the Clone Wars and how is that going to be relevant years later? And that, even me saying that almost sounds like, well, duh. But I think we've been thinking so much about it being a sequel to Rebels that we're kind of forgetting the larger story of not Ezra, of Ahsoka has been from the Clone Wars. So continuing her story should be pulling more from Clone Wars than it should be from Rebels.
Yeah, and it might be her battling with Anakin emotionally, like having these flashback moments that we're going to get in live action compared to animation where we're seeing Anakin and her talk to each other. We're having these moments that are, causing her trauma, basically.
They should give Hayden Christensen prosthetics so he looks like the Clone Wars version of Anakin with that
Just
block nose and
a
stuff.
flat chin. Just
I'm already seeing the complaints. It doesn't look like Anakin.
Yeah,
it's like, wait, no, that's actually the guy though. No, but flashback.
I'd
in
like
Star
to see
Wars,
somebody say. I'd like to see somebody say, we already know that people are going to complain that it doesn't look like Anakin from the Clone Wars, so we fixed it. And then the episode airs, and he looks like Dooku. It like doesn't make any sense. Just his whole face is the 3D Dooku.
Or he's just the Sith Inquisitor again.
Exactly.
Yeah. The flashbacks thing in Star Wars has made it very much more difficult to speculate on stuff like this because there's always that option to, it's not forward anymore. It's, it can be in the past. And that was only as recent as 5 years ago where that started. So with The Last Jedi, I believe.
Right.
So it's, it certainly makes it a lot harder. I'd be curious to see if they do flashbacks. The other thing I just thought of, and I'm sure people have talked about this, back to that whole, seeing that they're clearly tying a lot of this stuff in more than we thought in terms of overlapping with the Mandalorian in the Book of Boba Fett. And they showed, Luke connecting with Grogu after having spent time with Ahsoka and all that sort of stuff. And we sort of saw, Grogu being targeted and they flash out of it. Is there any chance whatsoever that they make it so that Ahsoka saves Grogu? That she's the one?
I mean, possibly.
But wouldn't she have said something on that episode? Or are you saying that they're going to play it close? Like maybe she didn't want to admit it?
Yeah, maybe it's something she didn't want to reveal or something like that because they put that there for a reason. And I don't think you leave that sort of cliffhanger and have it be like, oh yeah, it was Jeff who bailed him out. It's got to be someone big. And I'm not saying I'm the first person. I'm sure a ton of people have said, "Oh, is that why we haven't seen Ahsoka?" In these
Where
other
was
things.
she when that happened? Haven't they answered that question?
She quit the whole Jedi Order and walked away.
Right.
But she was. That's the end of Clone Wars. She was with Rex, and Rex turned on her and tried to kill her.
But that's the well, the real reason is because the character wasn't created yet. Why she wasn't in, any of the
I'm saying
Revenge of the Sith or anything.
I
But
can't remember, in the timeline of things. I always mess it up, where.
So, Clone Wars ends, a year or so, whatever, before Episode 3. And
I would say to that just off the top of my head, I would say that would probably not be possible considering where she was at the time.
She's on the ship, right?
And how much time do you think, once she found out that happened, Order 66 went through the process, she saved Rex, they got out of there and all that stuff. Even if she went straight back to the temple, it would have been over. Grogu would have already been killed or rescued.
Right, because they show the shot of him being held by someone and Jedi are holding the troopers back, remember? In Book of Boba Fett.
Well, and they all get killed. Yeah.
But I'm saying that's actively happening with the troopers, so she would have to get back. I guess and then
the question is how long was Order 66? You know what I mean? Was it 2 days? Was it 3 days? 5
minutes.
I don't know.
Well, it could be the War on Terror, where it's it's technically still going on in A New Hope.
Yeah.
But
you can say that. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just it might not be her. It's probably not her. It just popped into my head because they're trying to connect all these shows for some reason, and it would be another way to connect Grogu, which is our new golden goose, to that show. So who the heck knows? They have a lot that they have to take care of on that series, which all indications are there is no second season because it's called a limited or special event series. I believe is what they're calling these things now.
Man.
So they got a lot to do. So I wouldn't blame them for not trying to toss that into the mix too. But it just popped into my head, so I just threw it out there.
Well, let's talk about another show that's coming up, and that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Recently, we got an interview with the head writer, and the interview involved, When I say that too, it was one of these Entertainment Weekly interviews.
They're
that
really
had just been
stretching
going
it out.
on and on and on.
That one interview that they just kept pulling.
Yeah,
bits
exactly.
from.
Like, I wonder if Disney was like, we want you to stretch this out because we want you to be the exclusive person, people covering this, or if they just gave them like, here's the information, do whatever you want with it, and they're like, well, we can't. God,
That's Entertainment Weekly.
Yeah, 100%. I just don't
100%.
understand why like more people haven't had these exclusive stories, but I guess they have.
Remember,
it's just like Entertainment Weekly stretching out what they got.
When we had Bresnikan on, he was Entertainment Weekly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We had no idea how he did his interviews. We're like, so you went to the set and stuff? He's like, no. He's like, I got on the phone with them from like a hotel room.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh. And he's like, yeah, and I do it all in that one shot. So they do it all like probably via phone in the span of 40 minutes for everybody. And
Zoom
then they're
call.
like, yeah. And then they're like, 2 sentences on Tuesday. In 2 weeks, 2 more sentences. And they just like, because they want, the more, impressions and that sort of thing. So this is, to me, it's, based on what Bresnikan told us and all this, like, this is clearly like they didn't sit down with Joby Harold 8 different times.
Mm-hmm.
It's only going to get worse too because now they don't do print anymore.
Oh,
They
I know.
only do-
They
only
for
do
sure.
digital. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the crazy thing too is like, even when we did that interview that was pre-pandemic, and it was like he said he got on the phone with them, and today I would think that would be weird to get on the phone. I'd be like, you guys didn't do like a video conference call? But even then, we had video conference calls.
Just like
the
Skype.
technology was out there, but like people didn't really do it. And now people have embraced it so much and understand the technology that we're even just like, that's how people communicate. They're like, oh, well, we'll just hop on a Zoom call real quick. I'll just throw you a Zoom and we'll do this call, It's crazy. But anyway, getting back to the point, Obi-Wan Kenobi, head writer, said they talked to Entertainment Weekly, and the big thing coming out of this was the bleak tones and the transition into hopefulness, kind of giving that period of time that this story is going on, this journey that this character is going on, where he's having to battle between the Obi-Wan of the prequels and the Obi-Wan of the original trilogy, and kind of like be both as they're explaining the story. So it's kind of interesting. I'm gonna be a little frank here. It's a lot of stuff that we already know, but there were like little tidbits if you're really paying attention, like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Lacey, I'm gonna ask you first, what was there anything that specifically popped out as kind of like new information and not sort of like, as John put it, a well duh kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm just laughing because that before the show I literally said something like that, and so to hear him say it, I'm like, oh, I don't sound as dumb as I think. Yeah, this is one of those interviews, like you said, James, I don't think there's anything in there that I'm like, oh my gosh, newsflash, exclusive. It's kind of just building on what we already know and what we expect from the trailer and what we'd imagine as Star Wars fans, where Obi-Wan Kenobi would be at this point. We knew that he would be battling with certain things, that he'd, be on the run, so to speak. I liked that they did talk about him going on this journey, him going on this trip. He has to go take one last adventure, basically, before he becomes the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan Kenobi that we see in A New Hope. I like how they acknowledge that he has to take that arc to get from Ewan to Alec. Because, I know John always asks that question, like, how do we get from point A to point B here? Because they're 2 different Obi-Wans. I really liked how they talked about how, obviously Jedi are on the run. I think this show is going to definitely have its moments that are like a little scarier, that are a little like more thriller-ish than we've seen before with Star Wars, especially with what's at stake, which is like literally people are being hunted down. But I think my favorite part of the interview and in the description was about how Obi-Wan is not just coming to terms with what happened to the Jedi Order, but what happened to himself and what happened with that relationship with Anakin and how he's responsible and how that's playing on who he is as a person, and then him battling with that with the consequences of his own actions, as well as someone so close to him that he cared about's actions, how they then come to play in this show, and then what we see down the line of where that character goes. I found that super interesting because I think we're going to have this Obi-Wan that obviously will stand up for what's right. That's what Obi-Wan Kenobi always does. But there are going to be moments of sadness or conflict with Anakin of, how did this get to this point? Because any normal person would go through that if they went through such a traumatic experience of literally killing someone that they thought they, was their brother. Having this hysterical, traumatic moment, being like, I'm leaving you to die, and then they walk around the corner again to kill you. Like, that is quite the moment, and everyone keeps talking about it in other interviews, and I think that that's going to play out similarly that we see in this interview of, like, Obi-Wan is going to have to grapple with the fact that, one, he's not dead. He didn't die. You just basically maimed him and made him more angry than ever. And two, now you have to deal with the repercussions of, look what you did to him. Now, what is he going to do in the kind of like way he is now, so to speak? I can't think of the exact word. Like the way Vader is at this point because of your actions, look at the damage that he's causing. And I'm sure he's going to grapple with that throughout the series of like, I'm responsible for this person.
Totally. Yeah, it's crazy to think like how much there is involved in like the whole aspect of Anakin saying like, well, the character saying Anakin's dead, I'm now Darth Vader, and how much Obi-Wan takes that personally or like to light. Like, is he upset because he's essentially grieving his brother who was killed by Darth Vader before they even fought on Mustafar? You know what I mean? Or does he still consider that he's fighting him? Because he says, then you truly are lost. You know what I mean? And he's willing to go through the effort of killing this guy. But it's just crazy, like, to go through that process. And I'm not entirely sure that Obi-Wan ever really, truly let go of Anakin, but that's debatable based on the stuff he says to Luke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess
he says
the
things
question
like,
is, does he
he's
give
more
up?
machine now than man. It's like,
right.
He would be
Twisted
like,
and evil.
stop pursuing him as Anakin. He's not Anakin anymore. He's Vader.
But what
You're fighting
moments are we,
Vader,
right,
He's
and what
Darth.
moments are we going to see
Yeah,
where
exactly.
he grapples with that idea of like, but this is Anakin? Like,
Yeah.
will Vader say things that he hears Anakin or that he senses? See, are we going to get glimpses in the Force of visions or whatever between them or something like that?
That's where the darkness of Vader is going to come through, and you're going to see some psychological warfare from Vader. He's going to take that helmet off on purpose or something like that to like really
look what you did to me type thing.
Mess
Look what you
mess
made
with
me do,
Obi-Wan's
Taylor
head.
Swift.
Yeah,
So he can see him with his own
Uncle
eyes.
Frank. Yeah, right.
What, James?
So that he can see him with his own eyes.
Yeah.
All right, John, well, it's your kind of turn. if you're a long-time listener to the show, you know how we work.
Yeah.
What's up?
Well, Frank, there's a lot of things we can get into here. For one, I think this story is more so for not so much for us like diehard fans who have a good grasp of what's going to happen in the story, because they're not Christopher Nolan, M. Night Shyamalan. This isn't going to be like some like, oh my god. I think this is going to be a pretty straightforward story, but its purpose is going to be to add layers and a lot of weight to it in terms of Obi-Wan's journey from what happened to old wise Ben in A New Hope, and also just giving us more of Anakin's sort of further journey to the dark side, and what's going on there. So I don't think that we're in for any like trickery or anything. So when they talk about this and we're saying like, yeah, no duh, I think that's what we should expect going into the series, is having a good understanding of what we're going to get and just hoping that it's executed well and it's a really well told short series. So I think this type of story is more for the casual fans. Like, why, we saw A New Hope and it was, this gap in time. Why do we need this? And I think it's more for that reason. And now in terms of, what he's saying and what you guys are bringing up, like with Obi-Wan, I still think, it is a little it makes me a little nervous that they're going like the, sad, depressed Luke version of Obi-Wan a little bit here. But the difference here is that we know he comes through the other side and he still is the Jedi of all Jedi when we meet him in A New Hope and stuff like that. So I don't think it's going to be one of those things like, oh, you ruined Obi-Wan and stuff like that. Like, he's saying like, where do we get to the hopefulness part? And have we talked about on our previous episode about, who's going to do that for Obi-Wan in this series? And we said Qui-Gon, the twins, all these people that can, help him, or maybe even it's Vader. We see full dark Vader and he realizes he is gone. There's nothing I could have done. He was going down that path. I am absolved, I need to absolve myself of the blame of this. Whether I taught him, whether Yoda was teaching him, whether it was still Qui-Gon, this kid was going to be on that journey, and this is what's happening. Look what he's turned into. Anakin is officially gone. And it makes me think of like, he used past tense on Mustafar when he cut Anakin down and he's burning. He didn't say, you are my brother, I love you. He said, you were my brother, Anakin, I loved you. So he's already like saying like, this is not Anakin that I'm fighting. This is this Darth Vader person, And I think he, may be struggling with that. But I also believe in Obi-Wan as a Jedi, and with that, he sort of understands how to compartmentalize that stuff as one of the biggest beacons of what a Jedi should be. So I don't think this is going to be a whole complete thing where he's like down in the dumps the whole time. I hope they sort of knock that out rather quickly, and we can see him start making the journey back towards who we know he should be, maybe a third of the way through the series. So maybe after those first 2 episodes we see at Celebration. I don't want it to be a thing where he's like this mess the whole time until the very end. I want to see prime Obi-Wan in this series, because this is really the only shot we're going to get at seeing Ewan McGregor. I don't think they're doing more seasons of this, and I honestly think it would be a little weird if they give us this amazing return for Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi in his own series, and then they're like, no, but the last time you're going to see him is a cameo in Andor or something. No, it's like, no, this has to be it. We're lucky we're getting this much of Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi again. 6 episodes, maybe an hour long. We're not really sure. It's almost like he's getting another trilogy for himself. So we have to embrace that stuff and not, try to wring out the sponge too much as much as we love having him. And I would think Ewan McGregor might agree with that too. Go out on top. George Costanza goes out on a high note when he lands a good joke. That's what we got to do here with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Knock this out of the park, take your bow, hang up the robe, and say, now I'm done. But again, it's a lot of no duh stuff here, but it also gets you excited because I like the fact that they're not going to try to go too crazy with this story, and they're going to give us the story we need to see. It's just going to be more so adding the layers and everything they need to add to it to make their encounter and stuff like that in the original trilogy feel even bigger and more real and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right that they're probably going to. I mean, they even kind of said in this article that they're balancing the two characters. So if there's like a sad Obi-Wan from the prequels, like everything's messed up, everything's in disorder, then they also have to balance that with the Alec Guinness. So they said that, and they said they were doing that. So I think you are going to see like 3 episodes of this and then turning into that, or 2 episodes of this, 2 episodes in between, and 2 episodes where he's solid, something along those lines. What is also interesting though is you said you think this is it. They did that. I mean, I think there was something we saw one time that was like open door a little bit to that, like if it's popular, we'll do another series. And it's like, it's clearly going to be popular. So what are you even saying there? Like, it does make me think that really, because we know how Obi-Wan ends up. We've seen him and we've seen the mental state and everything that he's in A New Hope. So since this is 10 years earlier, this series, not that they're going to do it, just hear me out, this series could end with him like on the ground, crying, upset, emotionally wrecked, snot and everything. And they could roll credits and we'd be like, man, that was a messed up ending. But we know he gets better. We didn't see it, but we know he gets better.
Yeah, I think it's got to end with hope, though, because the whole trailer was about like how hope and good feeling. And
I agree. I'm just saying that because we know They could end this all the way up till the day
Rejwan
before
said,
A New Hope, and if he's a wreck, we still know he fixed himself overnight. I mean, there's still. I mean, we know because he fixes himself. So emotionally,
God help fandom if they do that.
I know. I'm just saying that theoretically, this show still could go down any route they want to and tell the story about Obi-Wan, because in the end, he does get fixed. So I think...
I was going to say, Rejwan does say that it's hopeful that Ben Solo dies, so I guess it's like out the door what they think hopeful is. You know what I mean?
Why do we always got to bring that guy into this? These
because that's
chats?
a very specific quote to me that kind of sticks out as like, I don't know if I agree with hopeful. It has nothing to do with him. If she said it about any character, I'd say the same thing. It's just
I'm
like,
just saying,
I don't think someone dying is hopeful.
To bring up another Ewan McGregor movie, in Big Fish, he says, I'd like to see how I die, because then I'd know that no matter what I do in my life, that's not how I go.
Dude,
so no
that's the
matter
dream, though.
what happens in this series 10 years before, we know that he ends up okay. So they could do anything they want here because there's still 10 years for him to get over it. Look, again, I feel like I'm going down, I'm digging my hole here. I'm not saying they're doing that, but I'm saying that
gonna be the teaser
definitely leads into, if they wanted to do season 2, season 3, they could, as long as he's willing to come back. I didn't hear what you said.
No, I was saying Lacey
it.
will cut this as the teaser for the episode, so James is on this like...
yeah.
Look what James Bainey said on TRV.
Yeah. It's like she cuts it like right before I'm like, again, I'm trying to like not...
Dude, you brought up the Big Fish thing. Like, I really love that movie, and I remember I brought it up at the end of our panel in 2019, like seeing all these people and stuff in the crowd that were like our listeners. But like, isn't that the ultimate dream? Like, if you had the opportunity to like see your own funeral and be like, oh, that person showed up? Oh, that person didn't show up? How dare they? I'm gonna haunt them for the rest of their days.
That's there's only one. There's only one.
It's
kind
your
of final
dream,
thing.
John. It's not mine.
It's everybody's dream, Lacey.
It's really not.
There's only one other thing that kind of caught my interest in this, and that was the line. I mean, Obi-Wan and Anakin, Hayden Christensen, share so much screen time together, and I was like, really?
Yeah.
No. That's if you read the full quote.
Total though. I thought that's what he meant.
He's talking about in episodes 2 and 3.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I read it. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, was I wrong?
Oh, no. Okay, yeah. I kind of, okay, all right, that's fine. I saw that and I thought, really? That's interesting.
They still might, but I think he's talking about episodes 2 and 3.
All right, so to be clear. All right, well, let's move on to the next story really quick. We got a little bit of...
Oh, James, wait. Last thing real quick. We're getting the first 2 episodes at Celebration, and if it is going to be morose Obi-Wan for the first 2 episodes, and we only get those 2 at Celebration, there's going to be some talking at Celebration about it.
I think the first one might be him morose, but I think they gave us the second one because it's more of a happy one, I bet.
They better give us some Liam Neeson and some Force Ghost hugs and stuff. There's going to be some people really shouting at Celebration. But anyway, go ahead.
John, you do your recap like every week. You're like, we're only so many days away from Kenobi, and it still isn't like quite sinking in. You know?
I know.
But that's like, it's right around the corner. It's right about to happen.
Next week's episode will be almost quite literally a month away from it, from when it was supposed to air. Yeah.
Do you guys find it interesting that Netflix is putting out Stranger Things on the same day as Kenobi?
What show?
That is a power play. Stranger Things.
Do you hear my Stranger Things theory?
Is that like is that a new series?
I know you're being
starting?
Annoying right now, so I'm just gonna like ignore that comment. Because I think Netflix is doing that to be like, oh, you want to be get the #1 streaming thing? Nah. We're putting Stranger Things out.
I think it's weird for them to do that play after Stranger Things season 3, though.
I wasn't a big fan of 3. I know we're not a Stranger Things podcast, but
that's my point.
I don't
rule. So I'm down.
The what rule?
Tangents. I like going on tangents sometimes.
But I just found it really interesting as a fan of both franchises. I guess you'd call Stranger Things a franchise now. Both things, putting them out on the same day, my initial response was, oh, as like a marketing streaming person, if I was going to try to take down Kenobi, I'd put out Stranger Things, which is our biggest, besides Squid Game at this point, is our biggest property is Stranger Things.
I'm not that excited about Stranger Things. I mean, I already said that there's no chance I'm going to sit there during Celebration and sit down and watch Stranger Things. That's just not happening.
I agree with you, but I'm saying if you're looking at pop culture in general, there's more people that like Stranger Things, I would argue, than Kenobi. At this given time in 2022.
Well, it's possible, but like I said, I think that's a bold move, having come off Stranger Things season 3.
It's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off.
I think 1 was a surprising hit, 2 was a smash, and everybody like absolutely watched it up. 3 was like kind of like, oh, is this show still on? All right, I'll watch it. And then 4 is like, okay,
4 that they're splitting into 2 things. I was like, come on, this is crazy.
But I got one more point on this.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say most people. It's not like releasing it like it used to be, releasing a movie the same day as this movie.
That was the exact point I was going to make.
It's like everyone has Netflix and Disney Plus, and it's like, oh, I'm going to watch Kenobi, and then I'm going to bang through all the Stranger Things stuff in the same day.
It's not really a competition because both are free, essentially. If it was 2 movies, if it was the Stranger Things movie and the Kenobi movie.
They're 2 subscription services. They're not free.
I know, but if people have them, they have them. Like Netflix and Disney Plus, and it's like, all right.
Right, but if you're Netflix and you're Disney Plus goes, we're putting out our thing on the 27th because we're making room for Celebration, which I still stand by that statement that that's what they did. I've heard from people that's what they've done. They moved it to the 27th so that they could do it during that time. And Netflix looks at it and goes, I know John's rolling his eyes right now, but that's fine. Netflix looks at it and goes, I don't want them to get the record so far this year for the #1 streaming. They got it last year with Squid Game. I don't want them to get it again. Or we had it with Squid Game. We don't want it to be dethroned because, Mandalorian was getting up there. We want to take this away from them. If you're being strategic, you would do that. You would say, here's my, queen, move to this square.
Yeah. No, yeah. I just think I think what I'm thinking is it's the same deal, but on a smaller scale, because you're not talking about trying to win the box office that weekend. You're trying to win the streaming game, and you're really competing over people who don't have both services and were thinking about subscribing to that service like that month to watch it.
I think it's not just the streaming game, it's the marketing game of what are people talking about on social media. What are people going to be talking about, Kenobi or Stranger Things?
In terms of subscribers, you got to feel like for the Netflix thing, anyone who's watching Stranger Things on day 1 has had Netflix and has already been watching Stranger Things. Whereas Kenobi might be like, yeah, I didn't really care about the Mandalorian stuff, but I really love the prequel. I really love Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm going to pick up Disney Plus for this show. So I feel like Netflix isn't really hedging their bets in terms of we're going to get more subscribers. They're just like, we want all of our people watching that show that day. Whereas Disney Plus is like, hopefully we get some new people on board for this Star Wars show who maybe didn't want the Boba Fett stuff. Like Netflix seems more like locked in with Stranger Things. It's season 4. It's the show everyone already knows. Huh?
No, half of it. Like I said before, they're splitting it in 2 parts.
Oh, yeah, you did say that. But they're dropping all of like part 1 at the same time, so it's probably like
4 episodes, 5 episodes.
4 or 5. Okay,
yeah. Those kids are getting old, man. I saw like them in the trailer. I'm like, holy cow!
They're high
Those kids were like in
now.
Diapers the first season. They were tiny little kids.
I know, which is part of the charm, right? It was like that Goonies thing where it's little kids doing crazy stuff. Now it's like adults, and I kind of they're like teenagers, and I'm like, okay, this is like watching Riverdale, like. All right.
I know.
Like I want to go back to the Goonies feeling that I had.
So and the last thing on Stranger Things, because we're clearly
remember when I went to the other story.
Now, but, yeah. No, but hold on. But so I just sometimes shows really botch endings, and I don't think they'll do this, but they put out the name of that new like big bad in Stranger Things, and it's like I googled it. And it's another name of a Dungeons and Dragons character.
What's the name?
If they Vecta or something like that. something like that.
The guy that's like
Vitamin
floating there.
Vegemin.
The voiceover.
Yeah. The guy that's like,
it's
the
Vecna.
war is coming to an end.
Yeah. It's that body with the things attached to it. So they're like, they finally have an entity in the Upside Down that is the Snoke or Palpatine or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was like, if they do this with Stranger Things, because all these things, the Demogorgon and stuff, are all these Dungeons and Dragons, and at the very beginning of the show, these kids are just playing this board game, Dungeons and Dragons. If the end of this show is it's just them using their imaginations and they're still little kids and they had already filmed it.
No.
Imagine that. Imagine that's what this is. It's just kids like their imagination.
I hate you for even saying that.
I'm just saying, I hope they don't do it, but I imagine they did that, how that would just like ruin the entire show.
It would be like Lost.
There's nothing worse than when a show, well, Lost is different because all the things did sort of happen, but I won't, whatever. But there's nothing worse than when like a movie or show at the end, the person was just like dreaming the whole time.
They're dreaming.
Like, yeah.
Hooray.
How often has that happened? It sounds like it's such a common trope.
All the time.
Like,
oh, yeah.
Really?
That happens a lot. Yeah.
Have I?
Remember
Right off the
Click?
top of your head, can you name one thing?
Wizard of Oz.
Alice in Wonderland.
But
Click.
Click, definitely no. You said Click. That definitely did happen. But I don't know about Wizard of Oz. I also think Wizard of Oz did happen.
What?
Right?
Yeah, the whole thing is she wakes up in the
banged
bed.
their head. Yeah. All those guys were the ones in her thing.
You're here, all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
It wasn't like a green hand came in the window at the end, like it was real.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I'm trying to think of the end
Even
of that
the witch
one.
was like the tax lady, like whatever she was.
Also, side note though, the Wizard of Oz, like classic movie, like that didn't ruin Wizard of Oz. Like, oh, she was dreaming the whole time.
It did. No,
Stupid.
it ruined it for me. Ruined it.
Did it
Ruined the whole
really?
thing. Yeah.
No. Anyway, but Click, definitely not. Alice in Wonderland, I'm not really sure. Maybe.
She wakes up.
There's other examples.
Yeah, but she goes back like in subsequent movies and stuff. Stories like Alice Through the Looking Glass and all
James, you're dreaming right now. This
that. I'm
podcast
just
never
saying,
happened.
yeah. All right. Guys, guess what might be coming back?
Visions.
Visions. It's possible. Take it for what it is, but Cinelinx is reporting decent track record, I'd say. That they have it on good authority that Vision Season 2 is set to arrive in autumn of 2022. So that's just, that's coming up. That's this fall. There's been a couple different projects right around that's still speculating, and Visions has now entered the game of being like another one that's still possibly coming around this time. The interesting thing about it too is that there was the leaked gift box from a while ago. If anybody remembers that, it listed Visions. That's kind of a tip, as we were kind of debating back when we saw the box. Is that a thank you for doing this, or is that a look forward? The look forward was like it was a lot of stuff that we had already seen. True, like Bad Batch was on there, but we were like, well, we know Bad Batch Season 2 is coming though. This could be look forward. Tales of the Jedi, we don't know what that is. That didn't happen.
Indy
So they're
5.
not thanking for him. Yeah, Indy 5. Yeah. So it's like there were a couple things on there that was like, these are for the projects you've been working or will be working on. And Visions was listed. So it was like toss up even at that time. Like, does this mean that we're going to get a return to Visions? It was, as far as I can tell, successful. I don't know, Disney Plus releases their numbers or anything like that.
I loved
People
it.
seem to like it, I
People
guess, right?
seem to like it. Yeah. And I think like there was the whole thing with Visions as well that seemed like it was a punch for that Asian market. Like, hey, if you forget the lore, this isn't movie 9, movie 10. It's brand new. It doesn't have anything to do with any of our stories. Just get into Star Wars. Like, if you like it, just take these steps and just kind of get in. So I feel like if they had success even remotely in that world, then they should be pursuing this as well and just doing more studios and just whatever. So all of this makes sense, but Cinelinx is saying they have it on good authority. It is in fact happening. Look forward to it in the fall. John, what are your thoughts on Visions coming back?
I thought Visions was cool. I don't remember all the episodes because I think I only watched them once each, but I had a lot of fun with it. It felt fresh. It felt new. So like it didn't come with baggage. I like the fact that people couldn't argue, canon elements. So it like wiped out a lot of variables of what fans argue over. which is always silly in my opinion. It's funny, I was watching an interview with George Lucas the other day where he was like, people always say Harrison Ford's quote about it's all fake. But there was an interview with George Lucas and he's like, it's fake. Like, people need to remember that. This is a movie. It's all fake. So I'm like, people do need to remember that. And how I tie that in is just that there's no, concern over, this shouldn't have happened. It's just like, watch it. And all you have to do is watch it in a vacuum and enjoy it. So I like that aspect of it. So give me more of those. I liked some, didn't really whatever about others, but yeah, I'm absolutely down to watch another set of those. They were really well made, beautifully done. I like that. I'm not the biggest anime person, but because it had the Star Wars element to it, it made me want to like it more. So I like that stuff. Like some of the stuff I didn't like the Rock Band stuff like that, but some of them I really enjoyed a lot too. So I'm absolutely down to watch more of these. I already have Disney Plus. I'll fire it up when I get a chance when they come out and watch it at my own pace. Again, it's not a canon thing. Don't have to worry about that got spoiled for me. Now I know this happens over here. It's just like, nope, that's a short right there. If you want to expand upon it, cool. If not, I will live in that 9 minutes and then say thank you, on to the next. So if this is true, I am totally cool with it. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it comes at a good time for me. And I know, Lacey, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I know you have something to say on it. But I recently decided that because they're on HBO Max, I was going to get into some of the Studio Ghibli stuff.
Oh my God, my favorite.
Yeah, so I have never... I've seen Princess Mononoke. I watched it in theater when they did like a re-release. I was like, well, what better way to see it? I just went and saw it in the theater. So I've seen that one, but then I just recently watched My Neighbor Totoro and Spirited Away for the first time.
Oh, Spirited Away is so good.
Yeah, so both of those, and then like a week or two.
You gotta watch Howl's.
Yeah. So
That's
like
my
a week or two
one.
later, whatever, we're getting this, the Visions is returning, and I'm like, so much of what like I saw in Visions, and I mean, I was very clear. I knew the artwork. I knew Studio Ghibli just like by trailers and imagery and yeah, just pop culture, exactly. So I was kind of like caught in that, but like it's so interesting to see that stuff being done where Star Wars is the theme, and it really does feel that when you're watching Visions, and just it was such a cool thing. I personally still kind of feel like they dropped the ball by releasing it all at once. I feel like who cares if it wasn't making a big splash 9 weeks later. They should have just released them once a week and put out the new poster and said, this episode's available now, check it out. Just did a little bit of marketing there. Wouldn't have had to been anything crazy, just social stuff. But I feel like keeping people talking about Visions for 9 weeks would have been the goal. And I feel like it was really awkward that they dropped it. Everybody blasted it for about 2 weeks. And
Not
then it
even
was
that.
I know, but it was like, you know what I mean? It was still kind of floating for like 2 weeks.
So many people got screeners for this thing. I was very, very lucky and grateful that I got screeners because I needed to, like I said, blow through them to get reviews up and reviews done in time for the embargoes. But I felt like a lot of people got screeners for this series. So there were a lot of people that I saw tweets and stuff being like, am I the only one that hasn't seen this series yet? Because by the time it came out, so many people had seen it and loved it. It's great. But yeah, like you said, not many people were talking about it the next week. And every once in a while, I'll see a tweet or I'll think about it and be like, oh, I really loved that. I want to go back and watch it again. But it just happened so quickly. I'm not really surprised that they're doing a second season just because I think it deserves it. And I'm really pumped about it. And a lot of the studios that worked on season 1 or had more story to tell, they've been very open about it. That they, like the Ninth Jedi, they had been very open that was the first part of a bigger story that they were trying to tell. I think the twins too kind of left, which was one of my favorites as well, left in a place that you're like, where does it go from here? And all the studios that did these amazing projects were like, yeah, we have more to tell. We have more about these characters. We have more ideas. We want to keep doing this. So it's just kind of a no-brainer of why wouldn't you do it? So I'm glad that they are.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Excited for Vision Season 2. We also wanted to talk really quickly about Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rupert Friend, saying that, he got an interview and was talking a little bit about the Grand Inquisitor and how it was such a sweet suit. No, I mean sweat suit. No, but he is excited about being a part of Star Wars. So if you want to go check that interview, you can. It's on Star Wars, not the interview itself, but like if you want to get the coverage and everything, it's on StarWarsNewsNet.com, as well as some High Republic stuff. That if you're watching Star Wars YouTube, they do the High Republic show. Tons of information on that show. If you are not keeping up with High Republic, they have it all there. But this week they announced, Phase 2 will introduce new characters. Specifically one tied to Marchion Ro, if you're paying attention to that comic. So it's very cool that we're getting new books and new introductions to some of the more interesting villains in Star Wars. Like people like to point to the Emperor, Darth Vader, Darth Maul, stuff like that. But keep your eye on Marchion Ro, man. This dude is pretty nuts and pretty crazy villain. But that is it for the news this week. Lacey, we have a pod race to get to, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, guys, it's time for the Patreon pod race. So there are lots of ways you can support us. You can follow us here on YouTube, subscribe, comment, etc. Make sure to ring the bell for notifications. I know sometimes YouTube won't let you know when we put up new videos unless you have that checked, so make sure that you do. You can follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN or on Instagram at The Resistance Broadcast or any audio platform. We love Spotify. Please leave us a review. It means so much to us. But if you want more than that, you want to support the show, what we're doing here, as corny as it sounds, like our dreams as creators and what we plan to do in the future, you can head over to patreon.com/resistance broadcast. Starting at just $2 a month, you're saying, I want to be a part of the Resistance. I want to support what you're doing. Keep going. And you get tons of cool stuff like, as you go up in the ranks, Discord access, which is exclusive to just our community. It's a really great place. You get exclusive videos, polls, and much more. This is a part of the show that we let our generals and spice runners, our two top tiers, be a part of the show. We ask them a question, they give us their answer, we talk about it. But before we get to that, I want to say thank you to our generals and spice runners. So first up, to our generals. Taking a breath. Thank you, Carmelo, Jeremy Myers, John Risi, Jetta Rosewater, Paul Olson, Frank Grande, Darth Hurricane, John Chorlton, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Ramori, Matt Heath, Double C Chris White, Brendan McLaughlin, and Val Trichkoff. Thank you guys so much as generals.
Thank you.
And to our Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gelnar, Ryan Wara, Dave Hornack, Micah Harrison, who just did a killer Spice Run last week, which was one of our live streams exclusive to Patreon, Thomas Hennessy, and Andrew Staley. Thank you guys so much for being extra spicy.
Yeah.
So this week we have our General Beard, as we like to call him, John Risi. And his question is, if Lucasfilm finally decided to explore the older public in canon live action, would you prefer they make an ongoing Disney Plus series to tell these stories, or a film trilogy series for the film trilogy / series or films? Or to put it bluntly, Old Republic live action TV or movies? Wow, that was a wordy question. Go ahead, John.
TRB community, hello there. General Beard here. I think we absolutely would need a live action Disney Plus series for the Old Republic. Multiple seasons covering all of the stories. Darth Bane, for example, 3 full books could easily be 6 seasons, two seasons of book, I can imagine. The Revan novel is another couple seasons. Those are personally the only ones that I've read, but all of the Old Republic lore that's in the video games and all the other books, it could be told so wonderfully in long form storytelling. The movies are great, and I'll always appreciate the movies, but you have 2-year gaps between them. I think weekly release, a season every year, it would get a lot more attention and a lot more love, and I think it would be really, really well done. So fingers crossed that happens. Everyone have a good night. General Beard out.
Well done, John. Awesome job. James, what'd you think?
Yeah, I fully agree with this. I think Lucasfilm has to make a decision whether they want that thing, which is just sitting there ripe and ready, and it could be so cool. Do you want to do that as your trilogy, or do you want to do that as their TV show? And I think if they have realized what Disney Plus is and the possibility and the power that is, I know they want that box office to be there, but I think almost in a weird way that they're starting to switch their mindset of let's let the movies be episode 10 and 11 and 12, and let's just do that. And let's let our series be the talked about thing every week for multiple weeks, for years to come. Let's stretch out our big property to 8 seasons of Game of Thrones, 8 years of the Old Republic, and just like dominate with Disney Plus subscriptions. I think you're dead on, John. So good going. And thanks for being a Spice Runner always.
John?
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I agree with John's answer. Way to toss the hello there in there with a little look. But no, great job as always, General Beard. And you've been with us so long that you're we have a lot of beards in the base, but you are General Beard. You're the OG Beard. But no, I agree with you and James. I think series is the way to go. You can really not have to cut corners, and it always feels like Old Republic is medieval in a sense. It reminds me of that Game of Thrones type of thing, so that could be a really fun thing to tune into every week, kind of like a lot of us used to do with Game of Thrones. So I'm all in on series. Great answer, great job. Thanks for your support, and keep it going, buddy.
John, thank you so much for your answer. Both Johns, I guess. Thank you for your answers. We appreciate having you here in the community. We love everything that you bring. And you're just a really cool guy. I love your collections of like the coolest things I've ever seen. Like he has a really cool, I believe, Hot Toys collection. Like the really cool figurines and stuff. So anyway, thanks for being a part of the Resistance. You're the best. Back to our John.
All right, so we have a quick question we just want to do a quick answer on, and it was submitted to us via Ask the Resistance from Mark Judick at Mark Judick. Way to get your handle. We said that before to you, Mark, but good to see you again, buddy. Thanks. He just asked, do you think Star Wars would still be around if the toys were never made? What do you think, Lacey?
This is a tricky question because I feel like, similarly to what Bryce Dallas Howard said in the beginning of this episode / her interview, is that she got into Star Wars through the toys. Like she didn't know what Star Wars was, but she got the toys from George, which is awesome, and then played with the toys and then got into the movies when she got older. I kind of feel the same. I remember getting toys when I was really young, and that kind of just played into my imagination and played into what I thought of these characters outside of the movies, which then pushed me even more into the fandom, into liking these things. So I would say, I'm trying to make sure that I word it correctly. Do you think Star Wars would be around? No, I don't think it would. I don't think it would have the lasting impression on people, especially filmmakers and directors and actors and all these people that say, including Jon Favreau, that they played with these toys in their toy box and that's why they love it so much. I don't think it would be the same.
Yeah, it's
James,
weird.
any thoughts?
Yeah, just because I listened to a podcast like this week before this question got sent to us on the action figure. And it was like the origins of like how we had Barbies, but they were like, how do we sell dolls to boys? And it's like, so they created the G.I. Joe and they did this. Yeah, they did these different series and stuff and all that went into that. And of course, part of this was the whole like Hasbro, Kenner, Star Wars toys and how popular they were, and action figures just became like part of the cultural thing. It almost makes you wonder, would toys be a thing if Star Wars wasn't, Like, I agree with Lacey wholeheartedly, but Star Wars toys were so instrumental at that time for so many reasons, including the toy market. It's like the reason toys are the way they are is because Star Wars did it right, and every other franchise in the world was like, oh, shoot, yes, we see it now. So if Star Wars toys had never been made, like, I don't know that it would even be the same world we're in,
I think it's something we can just explore, just like the toy element of it and the history of that with Star Wars in another discussion, because I'm kind of torn on it. I see both points, both sides, so I'll defer to us kicking that can down the road and speaking about it again in a longer discussion one day. So thank you, Mark, for that question.
Yeah.
And thanks to everybody who submitted questions. If you didn't get on the show, we're going to use more of those next week when we have time, but we are up against time now, so we're going to hop out of here. But thanks to everybody for listening and watching and being a part of TRB. Subscribe on your favorite platforms. Tell all your friends. Make sure you're going to StarWarsNewsNet.com every day for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. Johnny Hoey on Twitter, StarWarsNewsNet.com, just like the movies on all your podcast apps. And that's me. James?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at MyraTrunks.
Lacey?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin.
All right, everybody, we will see you on Thursday, where we're going to get you ready for Star Wars Celebration, kind of like we do every time there's a celebration, whether there is one or not. So until then, we hope you enjoy your weeks, and we'll see you next time right here on the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids.